Hey everyone, this is Ethan. Tonight, the Bears. And the Bears came very close last year. They had a great season, and I don't think that they're going to get quite the credit they probably deserve to get for the season they had, because a lot of people are going to sort of say, oh, they got lucky in some places. Well, my friends, luck is definitely a major factor in skill. I'm sure the Packer fans are probably like, but look what happened in the NFC Championship game. They also lost Jay Cutler for half the game. Speaking of Jay Cutler, first of all, I do think the Packers are a better team than the Bears, by far. I mean, I think that any given Sunday a team can win a game, but I do think the Packers were better than the Bears just because it shows the difference between the two general managers. You have Ted Thompson, who's top three in the NFL. Then you have Jerry Angelo, who is not very good. So, I will say, though, that Jay Cutler does not get the amount of credit that he should for basically standing in the pocket behind a patchwork offensive line that got better as the year went on, but still was never very good. Like, they were, at best, still probably, definitely bottom half of the league, probably bottom 10 in the league. And he took shot after shot after shot after shot all season long. For anyone who says that Jay Cutler isn't tough, and I know the argument is that Jay Cutler wasn't the toughest guy. He had to come out of that game against Green Bay, blah, blah, blah. While I don't think Jay Cutler's going to remind anyone of Brett Favre anytime soon, other than the interceptions that he occasionally throws, I do think that he showed toughness to me this year. The fact that he was able to drop back every single time, even after that Giants debacle, which may have been the ugliest football game that I've ever seen since being a football fan. Just so many sacks. It was like the equivalent of the Butler UConn college basketball final, just with all the pressure, all the turnovers, and all the messiness. And honestly, Jay Cutler, I mean, he's probably never going to be the top five quarterback that many envisioned him being, but he still helped to lead this team to the NFC Championship game. Whether or not they had an easy matchup against the Seahawks, they played them earlier in the year. They actually beat them by more in the playoff game. They beat them earlier in the year. So it's not like they didn't improve and Cutler didn't improve the team. He did. His presence did help the Bears, which is more than what was being said last year when he led the league in picks. So I I'm not sure whether he was worth the two first round picks. I'm not sure what Chicago could have done with those two first rounders. But I do think, well, I guess with one a couple of years ago, they could have gotten a pretty good pick because they had a pretty high first. But overall, I think that the trade, if it wasn't worth it, is at least arguable in terms of the worth, which is more than what you could say after one season 2 years ago. I mean, still making the NFC Championship game, pretty good step, and maybe with another good draft or two, they can go that next level. But Jerry Angelo does not have a sensational track record with his drafting ability, which is a little bit unfortunate for Bears fans. He's a decent GM, he's not great. He hemorrhages picks sometimes on a lot of risky products. He's almost as bad as the aforementioned Al Davis we talked about in the last video in terms of taking height, weight, speed guys. He will take, like Jared Gilbert was an athletic freak. That's why they drafted him. Corey Wooten, who hasn't really done that much yet in the NFL, although he has made a slight impact. He is a height, weight, speed guy. That's why they picked him. So I think that the Bears definitely will mix in those speed picks, those athletic freaks. They were the team, of course, that were rumored to want to trade up for Mike Mitchell before the well, no, they weren't going to trade up. They were going to take Mike Mitchell before the Raiders took him in the second round of the draft. So I think that there's definitely some Al Davis in the Chicago organization. And then other times they make sensible picks that work out. I mean, Major Wright, maybe not the most athletic guy, but he came in and he started. And then you have Johnny Knox, who, well, while he was definitely a speed-based pick, he's turned out to be a pretty good player. So, looking at this year's draft, I definitely think the offense is what will be addressed to get Jay Cutler some help, other than Matt Forte. and I guess Johnny Knox and maybe Earl Bennett if he finally comes out a little bit more. But I think that Knox or Bennett, I think they're both very good number two receivers. I don't think either is a number one. And I think that getting a number one would go a long way to helping this team. And Jonathan Baldwin's a name that you've heard a lot around Chicago. I personally am not a fan of his. I don't think that he is as good as some people are saying he is. I think it is a major issue when a 6'3" wide receiver cannot get off a jam on the line of scrimmage, which Jonathan Baldwin cannot do on a regular basis at all. He reminds me of James Hardy, the former Indiana product who went to Buffalo and did nothing. And I don't like him as a prospect. However, the Bears would be the kind of team that would absolutely love Jonathan Baldwin because he is a athletic specimen. So I could see that happening. Edmund Gates a little bit later in the draft would also make a ton of sense for the Bears because of the speed aspect, because of the athletic ability, and he might be an interesting pick in the mid rounds. Same with Terrence Tolliver and Tandon Doss, two other bigger wide receivers. Doss didn't have a great pro day. It's going to have him slip a little bit, but in terms of um, receiving ability and knack, and just like a natural sort of unquantifiable characteristic, Doss really impresses me. Austin Pettis is another guy who really impresses me, one of those kind of knack guys. And Pettis, of course, had the 3.88 short shuttle, which is as fast as Julian Edelman in short areas. So he could be an ideal slot guy for some team, even though he's a little bit bigger, making me more ideal, actually, because big slot guys are few and far between. Now, they said not to go Baldwin, which is extremely possible. Offensive line seems like an obvious departure. And they need offensive linemen. They need help down there pretty badly. They have some young talent, but when you have a chance to get guys to improve that position, you do it. Especially when you're going to finally be able to have the early round picks to do it, and when this is a relatively deep class of offensive linemen, especially ones that Mike Tice, the offensive line coach, would like. Mike Tice likes big offensive linemen. He was so. Funnily enough, should have done a little bit more research before I made the pick in my mock a couple of weeks ago. I gave them Nate Solder, and he's not a fit for them, so I'm going to apologize and take that pick back because I hadn't done all my Bears research yet. And I think a more likely pick for them is Derek Sherrod out of Mississippi State, maybe even Anthony Costanzo out of Boston College. Bigger guys. Guys who have that combination of ability to move and also great size. Sort of like Bryant McKinney, that, of course, Tice brought over in Minnesota. There are some other bigger people later in the draft. Ja Reed, out of Central Florida. Makes a lot of sense for them. James Brewer out of Indiana in the mid-late rounds. Both make a ton of sense in terms of tackles. And Brewer can actually also kick into guard. Reed's athletic, and he's very undervalued in this class, I think. And then also, interior lineman, Stefan Wisniewski. I want to address this. Apparently he's slipping. I've heard that he could fall to the 4th round, 5th round. Some scouts have said that he's an undrafted free agent at this point. I don't understand that at all. He's a very, very good player. And in terms of all the centers I've looked at, he is up near the top. And he would be a perfect fit for the Bears because they need a center because Roberto Garza is decent, but he's getting older and they don't really have anyone after him. And Mike Pouncey, a little bit earlier in the draft, could also be a really nice pick for them at guard. And, of course, they've gone the Florida route before in terms of major right. So I think that offense definitely the key for the Bears. They could go defense as well, make some more peripheral picks. But at least early in the draft, focus on offense for Jerry Angelo. Focus on that for the Bears. That's all for Chicago. I'm going to also do a Miami video tonight. That'll be up along with this one. Otherwise, tomorrow I will be doing the 30th team, the JETS New York Jets. So I'll get to that tomorrow, and have a great evening.